friends. I have Ashish Kothari on today, and he is the founder and CEO of the Happiness Squad, and he is a best-selling author of Hardwired for Happiness. And Ashish, I'm so happy to have you today.
Thank you for having me, Anna. It is such a pleasure to be with you. Thank you.
Yes. So, I have to, the audience, you guys, I get emails all the time about guests coming on, and it's not always unless it's like a heck yes, like of course, like we have those people on the show, as you know, and I literally just read the first line of Ashish's one, we call them one sheets in the industry, and I was like, yes, Natasha, get this man on the show because I am so excited to have this conversation because happiness is so important. And you have some tools and tricks and some thoughts around happiness. So, before we dive all into that, can you share with the audience a little bit about yourself and how did you get into this position that you're in today?
Yeah, it's my pleasure, Anna. So, I grew up in India, to a middle class family. I came to the US in 23. Both my parents are, my mom's a PhD and a gold medalist in differential calculus. My father was an engineer, gold
Oh, wow.
medalist. So you're right, like, so you have like you grow up with this very early age thing of only thing that matters is perfection.
Mm,
Nothing beyond perfection, right? If it's not perfect, it's not good. I remember like, and that's what like shaped my early life. If I got a 97 out of 100 in math, the discussion often was, great job on 97, but the three questions that you missed, you knew it, right? So I think it's important. We are shaped from our childhood and what we pick up from the society, and we start living those patterns unconsciously in how we show up, even when we are 40, 50, whatever, right? And that script, we follow it because it serves us. And it had served me so well. I mean, I'd come to the US at 23, first time ever having left the country with a return ticket with $5,000 in my bank account, which was, by the way, a loan that I had to pay back. And I'd found myself following that script, getting my MBA at Chicago. I made partner at McKinsey, which is one of the top business consulting firms, in 6.5 years. And everything, I'd met my wife there. We had a beautiful son. We were living in Boulder. So, Anna, all the things that I had picked up, do this, do this, do this, do this. And I had gotten myself to the end of the rainbow. And man, there was no pot of gold, but there was a lot of coal
mm,
because while externally everything was fantastic, internally I was dealing with every morning waking up anxious, feeling like I needed to throw up, and I didn't know why.
mm.
So I didn't know why was the biggest driver behind my journey of how I got into this work. And this is a secret, right? Well, it's not that much of a secret now. I've told so many people. But every time people think about me as a happiness person, I say, I wasn't researching happiness. What I was researching was, and it all came from this personal crisis, right? Of like, why am I anxious?
Yeah.
What am I anxious about? It all came from, I said, look, I'm going to research. I'm going to do what I've learned for 20, 30, 40 years to do. I'm going to go in. And so what I was researching and what then became the book was actually fear. And
Mm,
that's what many of your listeners, they all know what will make them happy or how can they be happy. But that's not the problem. What they are struck in is fear and anxiety. And so that's what
mhm.
I was researching. In fact, the title of the book I wrote was called From Fear to Freedom, A Journey from Within to Live Your Best Life, which we then termed Hardwire for Happiness, but more on that later. But
Yeah.
that was the journey, Anna, that I went
Wow.
on.
Yeah, it's so incredible how we are so hardwired from the moment we come out of the womb, and our environment is really dictating so many things to our future, and we believe that to be true because we don't know anything else. And we can check all the boxes, and on the outside, things look like it's okay, but on the
Yes,
inside, from a soul level, our soul knows, and that's why we get fear, that's why we have that anxiety, that's why we have all those things, is because 'cause we're not in true alignment with our authentic self. So,
that's it.
as as you, uh, dove into studying anxiety and fear and wondering, "Why the heck am I feeling this way?" Do you remember a certain point where you kind of, I don't know, I'm gonna use the word like woke up to, wait a minute, like I can feel joy, I can feel this happiness, and like, you know what I'm saying? Like that moment that you
I
real
do.
that we have that way of being that we think, well, this is normal, this is, and I don't like to use the word normal because I don't think anything's normal, but it's the way we wound up being. And all of a sudden, it's like we start to realize, huh, maybe I've been going about this
Yeah.
in a way that I could shift and change. So, do you have a moment or moments where that happened?
I do actually, and in fact, it was a beautiful moment of it was a beautiful week of clarity. So, they say when the student is ready, the teacher appears, right? It's a
Yes.
beautiful saying. And that teacher in my life came in the form of two women, Joanne Lavoie, who was a partner at McKinsey, and Amy Elizabeth Fox, who is the CEO for Mobius. They do a lot of inner development work. And it was a program at McKinsey that was being run in collaboration. So I had spent about 16 weeks battling this and reading and researching and kind of doing all this work. And I had an opportunity to apply to this program. It was in Portugal at one of the oldest monasteries, Anna,
Wow.
in Europe. It was the monastery where the plague stopped. Okay.
The Black
Uh,
Plague?
yes.
Wow.
And so it's a lot of spiritual now. It's in modern time, like so many things, it is now owned by a Ritz-Carlton. It's part of the Ritz-Carlton grounds. But the monastery, they still kept the structures of it.
Mm.
And that week, Anna, that we were there, we were off devices. First time ever that we had actually stepped back. There were 30 other people, like, partners at the firm. And I actually, that week, third day, woke up with no anxiety.
Mm.
Okay. So it was a very deep thing. But there were three things that happened that week that basically shifted and moved me into the trajectory that I'm on now. So the three things that happened were the following. The first was I realized that at the heart of my being, right? We all have an essence.
Mhm.
At the heart of it, when we unlayer from the names and what orientation we are and where did we go to school and what role do we play and all of that, at the heart of it, I realized my essence had always been relationships. I sent 950, 970,000 handwritten back then emails to people over holidays who walked in my life, right? I'm in touch with almost everyone I've ever worked with. So that was who I was. I was always moved to be able to connect with others and help others. Second, I realized that this work that is not taught in any school, right, was really, really powerful because I was experiencing the benefit of it in as little as 3 days. And I looked around the room and I saw 30 other highly successful, highly driven individuals at the height of their careers, all benefiting from this. And to me, it was like literally this three lines that any 2 points you can make a line. But when you have 3 points and that's a line, that's pretty cool. And so that became my line, right? I was like, I'm just going to spend the rest of my life learning and helping others rewire away from that fear to the base state of joy, which we all have as children. Children don't need to be
Yeah.
taught to be joyful. They don't need to be taught to be mindful and be fully present with what they're doing. But as adults, we chase joy. We
Hmm.
are absent. We are doing everything other than what we are doing right now, right? Our
Hmm.
minds are in the past and in the future. And I was like, I want to help people go back to that state that we, and by the way, all sentient beings are born with this core level of consciousness, which is pure, which is joyful, which is kind, which is compassionate. It's not a human property. It is a universal
Yeah.
property. The human brains and the way we get conditioned by society is what's broken. And I
Hmm.
wanted to return people back to that. And that's the
Yeah.
journey that I'm on.
Yeah. So I love that because our souls are not broken. It's just, it's like the machine, the wiring, the human body
Yes,
that the soul is experiencing, that it gets miswired.
that's
It,
it.
it's, and do you find it like so? I mean, I always find it so interesting that it's actually really simple
It is.
to get back to the basics of joy and happiness, but we make it so complex due to those wirings of fear and worry and anxiousness.
Yeah. And and I will build on that and say, look, happiness is a choice.
Mhm.
We can in moment to moment choose happiness. But what I mean by happiness, not happiness as an emotion. I'm talking about happiness and joy as a state of being.
Mhm.
So I can meet no matter what suffering is in the world from that place of joyfulness, presence, connection, compassion for the other and for the self, right? I can meet. So we're talking about a state of joyfulness. And yes, it's a choice and it's available. And what I would say is, and it's incredibly hard. I
Mhm.
think it is actually incredibly hard because we take action based on the lenses through which we see the world. And as
Mhm.
Anna, as you said, the lenses that we have donned that we are often unconscious about are colored lenses that are not seeing, they're not showing the world it is. And so it's incredibly hard. I'm like, I'm seeing this and you're telling me to act this way, but that's not what I'm seeing, right? So we almost have to change the lenses. And from all
Mhm.
your work on neurosciences and what you've done, neural pathways take time to change.
Mhm.
And they only change if we keep showing up and practicing different things, right? So
Mhm.
when we practice, we form neural pathways, they take time, but we can change. And then we don't have to choose happiness and joyfulness. We can just inhabit it, no matter
Yeah.
what's happening around us.
Yeah. Yeah. You're right. It is a way of being. It's
It is a
and
way of being.
yeah. And I remind people all the time that we, because of neuroplasticity, we are not stuck with the mind and the brain that we have. We can mold a new brain at any point. And you're right, it takes time, it takes consistency. Um, and just the other day, I was finding myself feeling just a little bit down and just off, feeling like, I'm not where I should be. When we get these thoughts like, I'm not doing enough, I'm not being a good enough mother, it's like, and then all I do is I go to my breath and I breathe and I remind myself, everything is fine. I'm
Yes.
doing the best I can. These are all experiences. And I get this sense of grounded peace when I go back to that, because I think, like, for yourself, someone who's doing this work, we're not immune to it. It comes to us as well, and that's why having these tools and these practices and what you're teaching people, I think is so important for us to all remember, um, that we need to build that toolkit to go to in different moments because we all go through different seasons for different reasons. So, what are some of your practices that you do to support yourself when you're going through, these different thoughts or these different feelings of, things maybe from the past that come up. I mean, I don't know. What do you go through?
Yeah, well, I'll give you my routine and kind of how over the last 7 years I've built a set of I've integrated a set of practices into my life, and I invite a lot of people to go through that. But Anna, there was so much beauty in what we just shared, right? Vulnerably, we are, I always say, you and I and so many others who are doing this work, we are just walking the same road,
Mhm.
right? This
Yeah.
is not about being teachers and being, oh, now I found this source. All the truth that you need to know is within you.
Hmm.
And the only thing you should believe is if it works for you. Otherwise, you're just adopting one doctrine, one belief system from another belief system.
Hmm.
Apply. But I love what you just said. We face it. Suffering is a part of life, right? Buddha, the enlightened one, right, woke up. He's not a god. Like he's just somebody who started to see the real kind of at the heart of the reality. Said suffering is a part of life, right?
Hmm.
Christ suffered immensely on his
Yeah.
journey and for his teachings. I mean, suffering is a part of life. Nobody's immune to it. But what we are immune to your point, is how we can shape our inner environment, our experiences, so that we don't let the water around us get in us,
Hmm.
right? There's this beautiful analogy from sailing, Anna, which is when boats drown in oceans, they don't drown no matter how big the storm. They don't drown because of the water around them. They drown because of the water that gets in them.
Mm.
And that's what this work is about, is how can we become watertight? How can we build our inner way of being that no matter how big the storm, we can surf the wave, we can come out of it, we can be buoyant, because we don't choose the storm, it's outside our control.
Mm.
So here's the practices that have now become a part of my life that were not part of my life for 44 years. Okay. It was not part of my life, but now they are. So number one, I wake up every morning and I meditate. I meditate for 45 minutes. You don't have to meditate for 45 minutes. My invitation to your listeners is spend the first 5 minutes of your day, just the first 5 minutes, mindfully. So when you wake up, you're in this beautiful, natural, created space where you're the most creative, right? We're waking up from the unconscious to the conscious. It's a beautiful space. Don't give that away by checking your email and letting the outside world come. So I literally have my phone on a different floor. I don't have my phone in my room. I wake up. The first thing I do is I meditate. I've now spent 45 minutes. I started with 5 minutes. But 5 minutes, you don't even have to meditate. If you don't have time to meditate, you mentioned, there might be a lot of young mothers who are also professionals listening. They're like, yeah, great, wonderful that you are sitting there and you have time to meditate. I'm trying to pack my baby's lunch and get ready and go to office. My invitation to you is mindfulness is paying attention on the present moment
Hmm.
without judgment, right? Whatever you do it mindfully. You brush when you wake up, just be present with the sensation of brushing. You wake your son or daughter, your child up, be with them rather than wake up and I'm going to rush away. Just be with them,
Yeah.
right? Just wake them up, see them. It's a gift. How many
Hmm.
people in the world are not blessed with a child or have lost a child? That gift is still with you.
Hmm.
right? And be with them. So that's the second practice, which is gratitude. Really recognizing and training our eyes constantly to see all that is good around us versus our brain's natural tendency to notice what's not good.
Right.
Right. So we don't
Yeah.
appreciate the child. We appreciate that it called me 3 times and it still hasn't woken up and his bus is going to leave and now I got to rush and I'm getting late.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Hmm.
So gratitude is a second big practice for me. And I think there are several like those. But the third one I would tell you, dear friends, is the following. We live in a world where only 30% of people find meaning and engagement in what they do.
Mm.
I think that is a travesty.
Yes.
And for many, it is not a choice. I think for 50% of the world, it is not a choice because they're below, they're struggling, they're in a war zone, they're working two
Hmm.
jobs. But for many of us, if you have work is what we do more than any other activity other than sleep, right?
Hmm.
Work is what we do most. It's the largest amount of time that it consumes. Find ways to infuse meaning into what you do. Because otherwise we will be stuck in survival. Like
Yes.
we're wasting our lives. We only live once. We are like a blink
Hmm.
in the right of the
Yes.
we're a blink.
Yeah.
But make the most of it. Find
Hmm.
meaning in what we're doing, no matter what it is. So I
Yeah.
always tune back to my higher why of like, what am I doing this in? Um, there are several of these, and I can send you my list that you can put and people can learn more about in an email back to you. But I think what's important is all of us pick up a set of things, 6 to 9 5-minute things that we do in the day that become our mental fitness regimen. Just like we
Mm.
have built physical fitness regimens, let's build mental fitness regimens that allow us to be happier, to be more resilient. And that's kind of a little bit of the work that we're doing now is, we're using the science of habit formation to help people hack their routines, to integrate or change what they're already doing so that this becomes more than, as you and I know, knowledge. We have enough knowledge.
Yeah. It's
It becomes,
everywhere.
it's everywhere, right? But it becomes practice.
Yes.
And everybody should practice and choose the ones that work for them. For me, mindfulness, gratitude, purpose, self-compassion. You do a lot about inner bullying. I have a lot of beautiful self-compassion practice. Those are the and then friends and community. I every day call somebody on their birthday. I call them. I
Mm.
don't text them or email them. Those are my practices that allow me to fill my cup. What
Yeah.
about you? What are some things
Yeah.
you do?
Anytime somebody just slips into my mind, I will text them and I just let them know. Because I would get this like all the time and I would never do anything about it. And when I started to reach out to these people, and I could not have talked to them for 6 months.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting how they're like, I was just thinking about you too. And that really fills my cup. The other thing that's a practice, like you said about waking the children up, I know the extreme value of that moment from the moment you wake up to a few minutes later when you're in that theta state of waking and how powerful that is on the subconscious mind. And so now when I wake my children up, I will, like my daughter, I'll say, "Good morning, my smart, intelligent, beautiful, kind daughter. It's time to get up." And I just like tap her. And then the same with my son. And with my son, I'll tell him, he's intelligent and he's kind and he's smart and, handsome. And I just try to give them these affirmations as I'm waking them up. Whereas before, I'd be like, kids, let's go. And I found myself rushing, and I'm like promoting happiness and mindfulness. And then I would catch myself in those moments and I'm like, "Oh, okay." So I've had to like shift those practices. And what I really love about what you said is taking some of those moments, like 5-minute little routines that you do throughout your day. Because if you can adjust, like just maybe the first 5 minutes when you wake up, maybe just adjust the 5 minutes before you go have lunch or eat lunch, the first 5 minutes of when the kids get in the car or you show up to work and be very present and mindful. You just keep building off of that. And just building off of those little routines throughout my day is very valuable for me. And it's sustainable, right? It's like little deposits into your bank account. It doesn't have to be one big thing that you do. It can be a lot of little things that add up, which is great.
It is always the little ones, right?
Mhm.
And so, Anna, so here's, and there's so many like Anna that you shared that I shared, right? But here's the thing, friends. You have to choose the one that works for you.
Yes.
If there is anything you take away from this dialogue, it's personalize it for you. But here's something that personalize how you live into these. But here's something that has worked for many, so you can try it, right? This is part of our Rewire program. That like my insight was we are habit driven. So your habit originally was wake up kids, and
Yeah.
now you've built a habit of
Mhm.
pausing before you engage and saying, how am I going to show up and how does that affect them, right?
Mhm.
And so if you all can do three simple things: mindful start, 5 minutes in the morning, spending it mindfully before you touch your phone. Mindful end, 5 minutes before you go to bed. If you can think about whatever it is, you can read something spiritual. You can think about what is one positive thing that happened today. You can write a gratitude, journal. What are three things? And whatever it is, but end your day with something positive. Start your day with something not negative, which would be
Mhm.
this mindful. And then throughout the day, I love what you said, Anna. It's a core part of our program too. Create 1 or 2 mindful breaks in your day. Just put it on your calendar. Between
Mhm.
10 and 10:05, I'm just going to take 5 minutes and I'm just going to breathe. I'm going to close my eyes and I'm going to recharge my mental batteries. Do the same between 2 to 4, right?
Mhm.
Simple things. And just notice little changes, how they shift your energy and your satisfaction. And then once you've done those, come back, find me, find Anna. We have a Rewire program that has 27 other interventions that you can play around with. But
Mhm.
just start with those three: mindful start, mindful end, and 1 to 2 mindful breaks in your day.
Mhm.
It'll make a
It'll
big
ch
difference. It'll
it
make a
w
big
Yeah.
difference.
It will, and it's like, once you do, like, say you start with those 3 things, it's like once we do start making that shift, we want more, and so that's
Yes.
when it becomes easier to add things in. Like, people, have said, "Oh, well, that's easy for you because," whatever it is in terms of health and wellness. And it's like, it's not easy for me, it's easier for me now because I have taken the time to do those repetitive things where it's like, I can't imagine going back to how I used to be. And that's what's beautiful about our evolution in this lifetime that we have is we get to evolve our soul, right? And it's not right or wrong, it's just where we're at in these moments and we get the power of choice and we get to
That's
choose
it.
that happiness.
That's
Yeah.
it. We have to choose. And I think, Anna, it's actually, look, friends, if you're finding, like I am in the last 2, 3, 4 years, that there are more things coming at us and they're faster and they're more volatile and the world seems more out of control, it is. What's also true is our human bodies and minds are not designed for this world. And I'll give you a very simple science-based example of this, a logic behind this, right? Every neuroscientist and evolutionary biologist will tell you the same thing. Our brains evolved to keep our bodies safe, not happy. Our brains evolved to keep us safe from physical threats that for millions of years of human evolution, right? Like all the way from apes all the way through, there was so much physical threat around that we needed to rapidly react, fight, flight, freeze. That's what our brain is designed for, because 9 out of 10 of these physical threats killed us. You saw a tiger, and if you didn't see it fast enough, you died. Right? That's what our whole limbic system is designed for, which is the more primitive part of our brain. It's designed for physical threats, anticipating it and reacting quickly. The world in which we live today has no physical threats, very little physical threats, unless you're in Gaza or you're in a war zone where there are bombs, yes. But most of us, if you're listening to this right now, you don't have physical threats of the kind that existed. What you do have, though, is psychological threats. A shooting here, what's happening with the politics, the war, an email from your boss, something not going well at work. We have lots of psychological threats. Our brain has no way of separating the two. It reacts the same way.
Right.
But what's different about psychological threats? Unlike physical threats, 9 out of the 10 killed us. Psychological threats, maybe 1 out of 10 is going to make us, let us lose our job. 9 out of 10, first of all, don't even materialize. But our reaction is at the same level.
Yeah.
Right? So unless we really learn to build new neural pathways, evolve our consciousness for those who care about consciousness. But look, I mean, you are living the world through this instrument, through this mind through which you're experiencing everything. We have to evolve it. We have to practice and build new neural pathways, leveraging the neuroplasticity property. Because if we don't do that, I promise you, you can read 10,000 self-help books. You can take whatever vacations, you can try and take breaks. Our state of satisfaction and happiness in life will not go up. Our levels of stress will not come down. And we will all grow old with the same regrets that people have been writing about. I wish I hadn't worked so hard. I wish I hadn't stayed in touch with my friends. I wish I'd let myself be happier. All the work of Bronnie Ware, we'll have the same regrets, friends, because the instrument through which we're navigating the world is broken. So my really invitation and encouragement to everybody who's listening is, if what Anna and I are sharing is resonating with you, don't waste a moment. Start with your next breath to take charge of your inner world, because that is the only thing you control. You don't control who gets elected. You don't control who decides to attack who. You don't control our economic systems, but you control you.
Yeah, that is so well said. And it's so powerful. And yet we act like it's like something that we don't have control over. And one thing that I've done that has really helped me get back to living a purpose-driven life is I'll ask myself, if I'm on my deathbed and I don't try this and I don't do this, will I regret it? And every time I'll get like emotional because I'm like, do the thing that you've been dreaming of doing. Ask the questions that you've been hesitating to ask. create the relationships that you have felt like you can't create because you're trying to somehow protect yourself from the past. And so, I mean, this is just such a powerful conversation because I always say our brain's the strongest pharmacy on planet Earth. And we get to choose what we're dispensing from our brain, and that happens through our thoughts. And I love how you pointed out the physical fear and the psychological fear, the threats, the physical threat and the psychological threat. We need to recognize the body registers those as the same. The brain does. Our heartbeat starts going up. We start sweating. There's a biological response. And so, if we can interrupt those psychological threats or shift the wiring to say that's not a threat to me because I get to choose X, Y, and Z, this is where everybody we get to actually truly rewire our brains and change the way we wound up being. And it's just such powerful work. I love it. And I love that you're helping so many people with this. It brings me so much joy. It's wonderful.
Yeah, thank you, Anna. Thank
Is
you.
there anything else that you would like to share with the listeners before we wrap this up?
I would say the following: do it for yourself, but most importantly, do it for our children and for
Mm,
those, if you're in business, the lives of people you lead, right? I think we can't change the world, but if enough of us change, we are the world,
yes.
right? And so this revolution needs to start from within. And so do this work for yourself, do it. This is the reason I left, Anna, my 7-figure job with lots of reputation and comforts, physical comforts to do this work, go
Mhm.
into the startup world. Because I have a 14-year-old, back then he was 10, and I was seeing in this hardwired state of fear that was getting more and more hardwired in people, we will not create solutions that leave the planet inhabitable for our children.
Mm,
The planet will be fine. It's gone through multiple mass extinctions. We won't be. And I
mhm.
wanted to play a role, and each one of us can play a role in shaping our inner worlds, and through that, the actions we take in the external world that leave us with the world that is habitable, hospitable for the next generation. So please do this work for yourself, but do it for the next generation and others.
Yes. And I've heard the saying, and I've actually witnessed it with clients I work with. When we heal what's going on within us, things around us begin to heal. People around us begin to heal. And I've seen that firsthand when I have, a mother come in or a father and they are anxious or they're ill or whatever it may be. When they start to heal what's going on within them and that healing begins within the mind, it's amazing how the children start to change and just the things around them and their friends, their relationships start to grow, and, it's so powerful. We forget how powerful we are as individuals and how we impact the collective around us.
Yeah. And, thank you for the amazing work, Anna, that you're doing. And just as a gift for your listeners, if they go to happiness.com/gifts, um, we will put in there 1 or 2 workbooks from these micro practices,
Mm,
as well as my own routine. Like, what have I integrated over the last 9 years that is making a big positive difference? So I will leave that there for them, that they can go there and they can access. We'll send that to you in an email as well. And yeah, look, I think we need to really do this work and we need to move fast on it because I think we're running out of time.
yeah. Ashish, thank you so much, and thank you for your generosity of your time, your knowledge, and then sharing those free gifts with our listeners. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Take care, Anna.